Holy shit, last night we watched the rest of Last Period, an anime that we had watched the first 4 episodes of back when the show was airing. I think it was just like Last Period and Hisone Tomaso-tan were the only shows we were watching from spring.
Yeah, I think because we moved during that season, it was just really hard for us to get back on the anime train.
But we were really enjoying this show back then. However, I cannot remember anything that happened in those first 4 episodes. Like, I have a vague impression of remembering that there was some clip from episode 2 that was a really clever comment on, like, how anime is marketed that I was going to use in how they marketed in one of my, like, weird breakaway segments. I think there might have even been multiples that I was going to use. And I remember that in episode 4, that's the one where they all win the lottery, and it's, like, this escalation of everybody buying, like, crazy shit. But, like, that's it. That's all I remember.
I just remember really enjoying episode, I think, 2 and episode 4.
Yeah.
And just really, like, enjoying the characters and the overall aesthetic of the show. So I was excited to watch more of it.
Right. So we marathoned the rest, and it's an interesting show more so than it is a good show. It's just fascinating. It's like, I had to see all of it because I knew that I was not going to see anything else quite like it. Even though it's sort of, like, a lot of people compared it to Konosuba as, like, another tongue-in-cheek, fantasy, goofy comedy show.
But it's not at all, because the source material of Konosuba is a light novel that, you know, is funny and is meant to be that way. But the source of this anime is just a mobile game, and they had complete intellectual, like, freedom, basically.
Yeah, they did. It's very obvious the anime creators were just told, do whatever you want.
Yeah, like just use the cute characters.
Right. So, because the original game it's a gacha game, I guess, where you put in money and you get, like, characters. And, which they call pulls, I believe, like doing a pull. Is that, or calls?
Call.
So you do a call.
And they're the call girls.
Yes, there's these 2 call girls that if you do a call, you get a character of, like, it's random what level the character will be at. But, like, if you buy 10 at once, you're supposed to guarantee get at least a 4-star kind of thing. So it's like buying a pack of Pokemon cards. But it's like a traditional RPG style game. Like, you know, one of those mobile tap the screen, you got 5 chibis fighting a monster. The anime series just takes the lore and everything of the game, which seems like it's probably a pretty standard, serious, like, story in the game, and they just make it into a goofy hijinks comedy, you know, situational, it's a sitcom, I guess.
Yeah, at least, you know, except for the ending.
Yeah, and how far it goes into, like, absurdity really depends on the episode. Like, every episode is kind of totally different.
There's an episode that is framed as, like, a talk show where they show us a documentary that's being made, and it's
about
not
the
like
characters.
Yeah, but it's not like from the perspectives of the main characters. It's just like a weird talk show with, like, film clips inside of it.
Yeah, it's just full of well, I guess that because that's not the first time I've seen that done in a show. There's Gintama episodes that have done that, and famously an episode of Ergo Proxy. But, like, yeah, it's got, like, weird framing devices, really just, like, every episode is just, like, whatever concept they had, they went with it. But within the episodes, it is very hit or miss, because it feels like all of it was written really fast. Like, it feels like you're watching, like, first draft scripts, where they just kind of padded it out to 22 minutes. Oftentimes, like, you can tell that the ending of the episode, there was, like, a big joke that they wanted to build to, but, like, they didn't know what to do with the early part, so it's just, like, characters over-explaining what the plot is going to be for this episode for, like, 6 minutes until finally the ball gets rolling, and you're like, okay, we're actually on the adventure now, you know? And the last episode is terrible. Because the last episode just tries to be, like, generic fantasy show, climactic battle.
Yeah,
every character shows up.
The last 2 episodes were, like, you know, put together to kind of do that ending. And if there was something that they were trying to say with that episode, it went over my head. Because it was just, it wasn't funny.
And that's the weird thing about this show, is that it does often have something to say. Like, not so much politically, but, like, social commentary.
Yeah, there is one episode, the beach episode, which is more political commentary, but a lot of it is social commentary. Like the episode that is a talk show, it kind of focuses on like there's a gambling addiction and like how the talk show is addressing it.
It's really fucking funny because they are addressing the fact that the game that the anime is based off of can cause gambling addiction. And so it's like a PSA on not getting addicted to gambling. Though what makes the episode funny is that in the real life game, if you put in a certain amount, you're guaranteed a 4-star call. But in the anime, as the call girl explains, like, oh, but that's how it is in the game. This is the real world.
Is the real world.
So in this world, there's completely random no matter what. He just keeps getting 1 stars no matter how much money he pours in as he gets addicted to the gambling. But yeah, it's they get really esoteric with what the episodes are about. Probably the most like I can't believe they did this one is the Kimono Friends one. Because there's one episode that is it's a send-up of Kimono Friends where the characters all go to, like, a Beastman country. And there's, like, this adorable boy tour guide who is, like, super famous and has, like, made the tourism industry in this country big single-handedly by giving people tours. And he gives them a tour where he tells them, alright, you're only allowed to say Sugoi and Tanoshi. Like, you know, wow, and I'm having fun. So, like, it's fucking hilarious.
And they give him, like, the Kimono Friends hat, and they also go on, like, the tiger buzz.
Right, it's, like, deliberately supposed to be Kimono Friends, but then the second half of the episode is a commentary on what happened to the production, because if you don't know the story, like, Kimono Friends, owned by Kadokawa, who is also a producer on this show, they... Like, the original show was made by, like, 6 people, and the guy who was the director, who was, like, extremely passionate about the project, is, like, credited with giving it life. Like, everybody sees him as, like, the father of Kimono Friends, but they laid him off the project with no explanation given, and, like, hired on a totally different staff for the second season. And everybody's fucking pissed about it. So in last period, like... It turns out, like, this exact same thing is happening. Like, they're trying to fire him and replace him with, like, 100 cute girls who will take over the industry instead. Now, in the show, it turns out that the mayor wanted to fire him because he thought he was working too hard, and he wanted to, like, you know, alleviate the burden on him by passing it on to other people, and he was just such a big fan. And then they end up letting him keep the job because he's passionate about it, and, like, you know, everybody's happy in the end. But, like, they're literally the meme girl, Choco, who is best girl of 2018.
Oh, of course.
Choco is like, if only it could be like this in real life, you know? It's like, wow, this is just a commentary on the Kimono Friends debacle, and it's the entire episode. There's one where the whole thing is... all leading up to an android joke. I don't want to spoil it, but
it's too good to
the
spoil.
whole episode is just a joke about how the Note 7 explodes, basically. And, like, you don't see it coming until late in, I won't spoil how the reveal is, but... yeah, there's episodes that are just, like, about really weird esoteric references, and they're not, like, super direct about it. It's like, you'd have to know the thing to get
a lot of
that's
it can
the
go
reference.
over your head, especially, like, the beach episode.
The beach episode is a nightmare.
It's a clusterfuck because it was an excuse to have all of the characters in one area with, like, as little clothing as possible.
Right, because the game... So, first of all, let's say, the best thing about the show is the character designs are phenomenal.
Yes. There's so many characters too.
There's like hundreds.
They all have really cool outfits. They all have really cool color palettes. They all have great bodies. Like the ass in the show is.
This is the one anime where all the girls have ass and thighs, and like, because it's obvious that the original game had some really fantastic artwork and great character designs with very like detailed outfits and stuff. And so any character that was originally in the game has been translated to the anime really well. Like, whoever did the anime designs did a perfect job of, like, translating those characters. They're all mega hot girls and stuff, and there's just so many of them because there had to be enough for it to make sense for the gacha game. So, like, you get to see, like, fucking, I don't know, probably, like, over 100 unique character designs in this show. And it's really funny because the rare occasions when there's background characters who aren't copied from the game, they look fucking awful.
They just, like, copy-paste them, too. Like, there's one shot where they're in a crowd at, like, at a performance, and you can just see the same guy.
Like 3 times in a row.
It's really awful.
Or they'll be CG or something. But, like, any character that they actually designed looks amazing, and the animation direction's really strong. There's tons of cute faces, there's great, Sakuga moments and stuff. But then also, the background art is abysmal.
Specifically the floors.
I think it might have been possibly a joke on the production. Because, like, the way that they did the floor tiling is, like, they clearly have this one image of, like, a cobblestone floor that for each shot, they just transformed it, like, using a transform tool in, like, a photo editor. Which causes it, at certain angles, to be really aliased and fucked up. And so you'll be seeing, like, these very clean-looking characters that look great on these backgrounds that are just, like, stock generic. They've got, like, a few filters put on them. It looks fucking terrible. And then, like, this jagged, pixelated floor texture. It's so bad, but as the show goes on, they keep using the exact same texture more and more until it's like every location looks exactly the same. And at times they make fun of it, like how every time they go to a new town, every town has the same layout and the mayor is the same guy, just like slightly different.
Recolored.
Yeah.
Or fat.
So like they're kind of making fun of it, but it looks really bad sometimes. In spite of the fact that the character art is fantastic. So it's like this cognitive dissonance almost, seeing the terrible backgrounds and the great characters.
It's like the exact opposite of the new Boogie Pop.
Yeah. Well, Boogie Pop doesn't have great backgrounds either. It just looks like shit all around.
Yeah, but like... There's some scenes where those guys don't even have faces, and like they're not that far away from the camera. It's what?
But
could have drawn a face on that shit? Last period had faces.
But the beach episode is basically like they tried to cram as many of the girls from the card game into the show as possible, and like clearly every
there was some man service too. Don't forget.
Yeah, it's true. I keep calling it a card game, but I don't think there's actually cards. It's just that you just...
Yeah, I don't think it's...
It's similar in structure to a card game, but you just buy characters, I think. But, like, every character has some kind of lore or flavor text, and, like, there is this greater world building to the story. And, like, the anime just chooses to focus on, like, a certain group of characters in a certain area in this world that the game takes place in. But this episode is, like, everyone's meeting in this neutral zone where, like, all the 6 countries are like able to meet up, and like so they just poured as many girls into the episode as possible, and it's like 45 fucking girls, and they all have like their own scenes where it'll just cut to 3 girls you've never seen before enacting some weird, not particularly funny scenario. Like, it would be one thing if each one was funny, but it's just like it'll cut to some girls and they're just doing a thing that makes no sense. And then you cut to another new set of characters you also don't know. And it just keeps doing that for the whole episode. And they're all, like, 10 out of 10 hot. So the whole episode just like...
Next level.
You're just like, I don't know what the fuck's going on, but I'm fucking not complaining, Yeah, it was...
There was so much going on where you didn't really have time to think about the fact that, the last scene wasn't funny, because you're just thrown into another not funny scene.
Right.
But at least it looks good. At least it feels like anime.
Yeah.
It tastes like anime.
I mean, the main 4 characters are pretty entertaining. The main guy is just, like, utterly hapless, and so he's a great comedy character, because he just has no idea what's going on, basically. There's like the generic girl, and then the beast man guy who's just like a horny beast man. But then you got Choco, who's the meme girl, voiced by Yukari Tamura. All the voice acting is great, also. Like, lots of great comedic voice acting, lots of just adorable girl voices. My favorite is the girl who voices a character named Diamond, who happened to be the same voice as Serara from Log Horizon, who I, like... in the Log Horizon video said, like, I don't always like her performances, but I loved her in this show. But yeah, just, like, it's very pleasant to watch, because you're just like, wow, the characters look really good, it's bright, it's colorful, it's never offensive to your sensibilities. Oh, of course, Wise Man is also one of the best things about it.
Wise Man!
Wise Man! So there's these 3 girls who are, like, basically Team Rocket, I mean, they look like Team Skull, but
yeah,
they are
the three monkeys. Hear no evil, see no evil.
Speak no evil. Yeah, they're themed after that, and they're called Wise Man, and like they do the ED, and they're just really good designs. Like probably the most memorable designs from the show.
The white-haired girl is like perfect.
Inevitably, these would all be amazing cosplays. Like any girl in this show would be an amazing cosplay, but those three is in particular, like as a 3-person group, I'm sure I've seen some stuff like that. But Wise Man are just like mega fun, immediate fan favorite characters. Like, you know, as soon as you see them, you're like, oh, this is the reason to watch the show, is for these three. And like their thing is that like they're always fighting the main characters, and like they always get like 5-star calls, but they don't know what to do with it. So yeah, it's just like lots of fun hijinks, and when the show delivers on like a really well considered punchline, it's the funniest shit. Like, when they actually build up to it just right, and then they hit you and you realize what's really going on, you're like, oh my god.
Did you have a favorite episode, without spoiling anything?
I mean, I remember really liking episodes 2 and 4, like I said before.
Yeah.
I just don't really remember entirely what they were about. I liked the one with the android joke.
The android was my favorite.
That was like, the most fun overall.
It's like, because I got that one more than the other ones. A lot of them have like anime industry references and stuff, and it's like...
Yeah, and sometimes, again, it's more interesting than funny. Like, the Kimono Friends one, the first half of the episode is pretty hilarious when they're going on the tour and all they can say is Sugoi and Tanoshi, but they end up, like, absolutely loving it. But then when it gets into more of the industry side of things, it's like... It wasn't as funny. It was just interesting that they even went there, you know? Certain episodes are, like, kind of a slog at times where, like, usually there was something funny in there. And like, for instance, the documentary one, like, the first half of the episode when they're just doing the documentary, they don't really do anything funny with it. It's just weird. It's just like there's this weird thing where they're following the characters and documenting on them, but it's not necessarily funny unless there's something I'm not getting. But then when you get to the second half where it fixates on the gambling addiction, that part's hilarious. Yeah. So it's always just like a matter of, you know, are we in a funny part or not funny part? So ultimately that's why I ended up giving the show a 6 out of 10. Like, I was bordering on a 7 when it was at its funniest, but then, like, the last couple episodes being so... Like, the last episode is dog shit. It's like, there is no reason for this show to try to go for big action climax because... And it's not funny. Like, they didn't try to make it funny. It's just very generic and by the numbers, and it looks ugly. And, like, there actually were... Like, the Android episode has a legitimately good fight scene in it, you know? So it's not like the show couldn't do that, but the last episode does not have a good fight scene in it, you know? So, like, that kind of ended up making me put it down to, like, a mid to high 6. But I think you were more positive.
Yeah, I gave it a 7. I can forgive it. The comedy in the show, like, it was a little bit more hit or miss, but when it hit, it was... It was worth it, and I really do love the characters. I love the dynamics between the main characters. Choco is a fucking joy. Wiseman is great. Yeah. The music, the opening is really good.
OP and ED are both great.
They're really good. It's
OP is a great video, because it's like the main characters on their quest, and they all, like, get their asses kicked, but then they go through the same things again, and they do it right, and it's like this level up progression.
Yeah,
it's
and
adorable.
I really love the how far they went with jokes. How far they went with comedy and with making commentary, because that's something that you're not gonna see in a lot of anime.
Right.
But it brought it, and you know.
Yeah.
There was the one joke where they had all the mobile games, and it had
Oh, that was a weird fucking episode. I forgot about that.
What was the other anime?
That was What other anime? Mercstoria.
Yeah, Mercstoria. They go into the world of Mercstoria, and I'm sure that bit is better than all of Mercstoria.
See, that was another episode, though, where, like, because the joke of it, and it's a perfect episode to describe the structure of a last period episode.
Yeah.
Which is that the first 6 minutes are just kind of meandering and not really doing anything. Then you get to the point, and the point of the episode is that they are playing the other games made by the same company who made this game on a phone, but like each of the characters from this story has a cameo in those games, so it's like the characters are trapped in the world of those games, but like the scenario is interesting, but they don't really use it to tell jokes. it's like kind of funny, but it's mostly just weird. It's really trippy and strange, and it's just like, oh, I guess that happened at the end. So yeah, like stuff like that is why it's like I give it a 6, but I'm glad to have seen it.
Yeah.
It's like, and you know, I feel like I get a few of those every year, and I'm always happy to have those shows. It's like, that's why the 6 out of 10 exists. It's like shows I don't regret watching, but I don't know if I'd watch it again. It's mostly interesting to have seen. Maybe I'd go back to the funniest episodes again, you know? I would highly recommend that if you watch an episode of the show and you don't understand what's happening, like, Google it and go read the Reddit discussion, because there's usually somebody who knows what the hell it was trying to say.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, all the episodes, like, except for maybe the last 2, do try to say something.
Right.
Like, it's more than skin deep.
Well, I don't know if, like, the one with Campanella, like, taking them all to the amusement park had much to say.
That's probably true. But it does say a lot. It says some cool stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. We didn't completely agree. We don't
usually agree. Like,
well, what are you talking about? We always
agree, but like I feel like
with a subtle difference.
We like shows for different reasons. We both have different demographics. Both have different interests, backgrounds coming into anime, and like I don't know.
I think we just, I mean, like,
I don't go into a show expecting to always agree with you.
Right, people are always like, oh, do they ever disagree? And it's like, well, aside from the fact that, yes, a few times we have, like, the fact that we don't disagree that often in like a complete sense is a big part of how we can watch anime together.
We both are on the same page about the quality of a show.
I'll tell you right now, like, you're probably not, like, when I get to Baki, it's gonna be me by myself. Because we watched the first episode of Baki, and you were like, this is traumatizing.
I was high, and it was too much for me. It was extreme. I'm down to try another episode, just like to watch it when I'm, clear of mind. But yeah, that might just be a show that you end up watching yourself. And again, like, I am watching Precure, and I've been watching it this whole year, and he hasn't watched that shit. So
yeah, like the new season of Precure, I didn't
we have different interests, like...
It's just that if we're going to watch a show together this show, it's probably going to be a show we both wanted to watch or didn't want to watch.
Exactly.
Because otherwise we'd break off and do it on our own
positive or negative. Like, we're both probably going to agree on the quality of the show, at least on that level. But why we like it, we have different reasons. So...
There you go. See you in the next part of this video. Oh, we just watched the first episode of a Netflix original series, Lost Song, from Studio Leiden Films.
Leiden Films?
What did you think of this one?
Pretty unremarkable.
Yeah.
I was disappointed that the show is, like, primarily based around singing and music, and we're kind of in this fantasy world, but the music is generic pop songs instead of something with a bit of culture, something that might have come from a society like they're living in.
Very good point.
So I just kind of thought it was boring. The main girl, I kind of thought she was cute. I liked that her bag had like a cat or a raccoon on it. I thought that was pretty cute. The boy with the glasses, I thought those were they were interesting designs. There's the blonde-haired princess singing lady. She's...
Linesia.
Yeah, she's just like a Linesia ripoff.
It's literally Yukari Tamura voicing another, like, silver-haired princess girl. It's like, sounds like a reprisal of the role. She's playing it exactly the same way.
The first episode was pretty cliche. It's pretty common in, like, RPGs where, like, in the beginning of the game, you go out in the woods, you come back... The village is destroyed. Yeah. We have to...
you wanted adventure, right?
Yeah, now you're thrown into it. And I don't know. I didn't really care to see any more of it. I wasn't impressed by the music. I thought some of the backgrounds were pretty.
I'm worried our battery's gonna die.
I can hear Tom screaming.
At Neo.
You should stop.
I'm gonna stop this clip real quick. You'd think I'd charge my camera in between takes here. Anyway, we're still talking about episode 1 of Lost Song. This is actually a great angle, aside from the lighting.
Yeah,
so you wanted to talk about the fact that we briefly checked the dub.
So this show is on Netflix. It's a Netflix original. So, they're going to dub it in a multitude of languages. Because this has a lot of music in it and, like, original songs and singing. why not see how the English dub compares? And
they didn't bother.
Once
again, I don't understand. It's like they're not really trying with confidence because they're just doing the same things. It's like Netflix has the opportunity to totally change the paradigm of how anime is brought to America. And instead, they're using the same dubbing. Like, as soon as we flipped it, I was like, oh, I recognize that voice. Oh, it's that girl.
It's kind of sad.
They didn't dub the music.
Because this is a show with a lot of singing in it, they could have used it to boost the careers of voice actors, English-speaking voice actors, and having them kind of have their limelight by singing in the show.
Yeah.
But, like, come on, Netflix. If you want to be like a key contender in anime, you have to fucking go all out with the dubs.
The thing about this show, and now we're gonna get into my ultra cynical take on this, because my general feelings about this episode is just that it was unimpressive. The one thing I can compliment it on is it doesn't look like shit. Like
CG's bad.
The CG is not great. And there's a few moments where some of the background, like there's this one giant tree that falls down and has just really awful, like, obviously digital texture on it that looks bad. But it's not nearly as ugly as most anime is these days. They at least, like, designed a town, a fantasy location for it to take place in. But, like, everything about it is totally uninteresting. It's just, like, very boilerplate, generic, fantasy story. The only unique thing about it is that it's done like a Disney musical. That, like, the character will start singing a song, and then there'll be, like, a little break for the dialogue to continue, and then back to the singing, in much the same way it happens in a Disney movie. However, and also like a Disney movie, it's all pop songs.
They throw a duet in there.
If you're gonna do music as, like, a central focus of a show, you gotta really bring it. You gotta do better music. The music is so unmemorable. It's so, like, just by-the-numbers pop songs with just, like, the most basic melodies, no, like, standout vocalizations. And I'm thinking about how, like, the Macross series has done this concept really well by hiring someone like Yoko Kanno to write the pop songs, It's like, who the hell wrote these songs? These are really boring songs.
I bet it was the same guy who wrote the script.
And did everything else. So that's the weirdest part about this, is looking into it, it seems to be like a director passion project. Like, the guy directed, wrote, storyboarded, sound designed. He did, like, half of the fucking work on the show. And so it's weird to think that this would be anyone's passion project, because it's
it's so uninspired.
Right, it's so generic and uninteresting. So then I started to think of it more cynically than that. And it's like, well, maybe this guy wasn't out to make a great show. Maybe he was out to make a lot of money. And I'm thinking about it, I'm like, this was made by Leiden Films. They have not really done anything that impressive. They've done some okay, middle-of-the-road, like, decent animation, but nothing incredible.
Do you think they're, like, a struggling studio?
I don't know.
Or do you think
I think they're probably fine.
They're just mediocre.
They're just mediocre. They've just done a lot of mediocre shows. I would compare them to, like, AIC or, well, in the last, what's a better comparison? Just like any of the other studios that have emerged in the last 10 years and not really done anything great. They understand
the climate, and that they can just make mediocre garbage.
I think that what they were going for, I mean, this show is above the level of anything else they've done.
The show looks better than a lot of the shit that came out this year.
And I think that they had the opportunity to make a Netflix original series, and as I talked about and how they marketed Be the Beginning, like, it's highly appealing to have original IPs on a big platform that you have all the control over. And especially if you can put a bunch of pop songs in it that you can sell. So, like, obviously the reason that it's musically themed is that they went, we can write fucking 35 singles to cram into this show and sell them all, and when we make it worldwide, if we have, if these get onto worldwide distributed streaming services or anything, like, more likely they're just going to be sold as singles in Japan. They're trying to, it's all marketing. It's like, we'll make an original show, we own all the rights to it, but we'll make it as broad as humanly possible so that as many people as humanly possible will watch it and fill it with music so that we can make those album sales. Because that's how you can make a show profitable in this day and age, you know, while making an original product. But, like, you just are left with this feeling of, like, I don't come to original anime to see something completely boilerplate and generic.
No.
You know? I come to originals hoping to see something original, not something that is clearly bred for the most mass market appeal imaginable. And even then, these, like, I don't begrudge, like, ultra broad art necessarily if you do it well. You should not be trying to bark up the tree of a Disney musical, because Disney has the money and the talent behind that. They have animators who are going to do incredible work. They are going to hire fucking...
a ton of people to work on the sound design and writing music and playing it.
And they're going to hire, what's his name from Elton John or something, you know, to, like, write the music for this thing. So, like... just when you hear the songs, they leave no impact. It's like the voice actresses aren't that great of singers. The songs are not well written. They're using very basic 4-chord melodies, very basic, not melodies, but 4-chord rhythm, and then, like, you know, just generic melodies. Man, Tom is losing his shit up there trying to play video games.
Take the game away from him.
He's probably fighting that stupid boss.
Yeah.
Anyways... talking about Neo, you can watch the live streams in my every YouTube video featuring Digibro. So yeah, it just left me with this feeling of like, man, this sure is generic. This sure is like, you know, the most boilerplate anime possible. Who is it for? I don't really know. I mean, they tried to make it for everyone, but, like, you can't make something that is legitimately for everyone. It has to be for somebody. You know, you gotta narrow it down at least a little bit, unless you're just going to be so impressive that, like, that people will, you know, say, like, wow, I fucking can't get that stupid song out of my head. I have to watch more, you know? I don't remember any of these songs immediately. I don't remember any of them. I couldn't pick out a melody or something, you know? Nobody walks out of Frozen and doesn't have fucking Let It Go in their head, you know? Yeah, well, that too.
That's the only good song.
That's pretty good. Anything else to say about this? You thought the main girl was cute. I thought she looked mega generic. I couldn't believe she was a main character, you know?
Yeah, but I kind of like that about her.
Yeah?
That she was, like, she didn't stand out too much because she's a peasant girl, and then, you know, the other character is, like, bourgeoisie.
You know I hadn't really, like, felt that she was, like, a peasant, per se.
Well, like, they were talking at the beginning of the episode. They live in a rural town that's, like, not even on the map where the capital is, so... It
seemed... I was kind of...
She's like a small-town girl.
Maybe this is just my fault, but, like, I felt like the town was just, like, right outside of the kingdom, right? Or, like, were they nearby?
Well, no,
I had, like, a bad sense of that.
Specifically, like, pulled out a map, and, like, in the center of the map is the capital, and the boy's like, our town is, like, off the map.
Maybe because of the fact that they did that, I just thought of it as, like, in video game terms of, like, oh, I could get on Epona and go from here to there in 5 minutes.
Also, there was a guy from the capital just, like, in the woods. Just, like, that... It's confusing. Do you think this was a good decision for Leiden Films to kind of, like...
I have no idea, because I don't know how well it performed.
I haven't heard anybody talk about this show.
No.
I haven't, you know... What the fuck?
What's up, Tom? You alright?
Neo fucking sucks. I hate it so fucking much.
Well, now you're in Finish or Fail, telling everybody how much you hate Neo. Were you fighting the boss?
I'm failing and not finishing Neo.
Alright.
No!
That's your Finish or Fail of Neo from Tom.
The boss was easy. I beat it in 5 tries.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the submission after that, we have to fight this gauntlet of like 20 dudes in a row.
Geez.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
I hate it.
And that's it for this. Holy shit, we just watched 4 1/3 episodes of Caligula. And, this was a letdown, but it did start strong. What were your feelings on Caligula? What was your trajectory? How are your feelings overall?
So, going into episode 1, I wasn't expecting a lot out of the show. I was expecting this to be something we'd watch maybe not even the full episode and drop. Because
the cover art looks
like shit. Like,
I thought this was going to be a light novel. Like, I thought this was going to be like 100 or something. Like, just one of those totally generic light novel or game adaptations, because that's what it looks like on the picture. And yeah, that we wouldn't even make it through the first episode. Lo and behold, the first episode of this show
was really tight.
Great.
Good.
I loved it. I thought it was a better Boogie Pop adaptation than Boogie Pop.
Really interesting visuals, really kind of like, it didn't look great, but like the shots were at least interesting.
Yeah, it's well directed.
And it was like just edgy enough.
It has good sound design.
Yeah.
That was like, and still, I would say throughout the 4 episodes that we watched, the sound design was always pretty on point. This is another show that uses a lot of music, not unlike Lost Song, but the music's actually good.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's an idol
it sounds like
making the music, and it sounds like idol music.
It sounds like a popular Nico Nico Doga songs, you know? Like, it's obviously based around, like, the edgier Hatsune Miku songs style, but, like, they do it well, and, like, the lyrics are hilarious, because the idea of this show, the concept, and this is not revealed in episode 1, and in many ways, I feel like episode 1, from what I've seen, is, like, very anime original, from going by, like, what we looked at of game footage, and so, like, the premise of the game and of the show is not revealed in episode 1, and I think that they did it that way because they knew that it would not be a good hook for an anime.
Yeah, no.
They knew that the more circuitous route they took would make it seem like this would be a good show and not just a game adaptation. Because the premise is that these characters are trapped inside of a virtual world created by, like, a virtual idol named Mew. Like, the symbol Mew, which is really funny because Mew with an S is the Love Live band, I think. But anyway, Mew is this virtual singer who a lot of people love, and apparently anyone who relates to her songs gets sucked into this virtual world that she created, where they perpetually live through high school, because she sees high school as, like, the most glamorous time in a person's life, I guess. Not an astute observation. I'm sorry, Mew. You fucked up badly. But, yeah, so she traps people in this endless high school, and most of them are just, like, okay with it. However, if you play a Mew song within this world, everyone will turn into weird monsters. They
go fucking berserk. They'll start attacking. And
yeah, unless they are somebody who is, like, who has, like, broken the conditioning somehow, like people who realize that they're in a virtual world, and those people are, like, being weeded out.
They're, like, awoken in a sense.
Yeah.
That's what they describe it as. But they also make it seem like people who just are damaged, like, are that way.
Well, everybody who's in this world is damaged, because you only relate to Mew's lyrics if you are a damaged person.
But it seemed like the guy's normie friends liked Mew, and
I don't think they were necessarily normies, because they were all, like, his weird, they were all nerds.
Yeah, there's, like, the fat guy.
Because at the start of the first episode, they're looking at other people who are, like, talking to girls, and they're talking about how jealous they are. So, like, I think they were meant to be a bunch of, like, you know, kind of misfits.
So is it only people in the high school who are in this...
That I don't know.
It's really fucking weird.
The thing about it is that the plot exists to justify game mechanics. And that is the biggest problem that this story has, is that, like, if you play it in a video game, it's like, why do there need to be... Like, there has to be bad guys for you to fight. So, like, their justification for the bad guys is that, oh, when this music plays, everyone turns into a monster and attacks the people who have realized they're in a game. What happens to those people after they get attacked? I don't really know. Why do people awaken to... it doesn't matter. It's all to justify the gameplay. And so when you translate that into an anime, it just raises a lot of unnecessary questions and makes it all fucking weird. And especially because of the fact that they don't explain any of this till episode 2. So the whole first episode is just like a quiet, psychological... I guess it's a thriller. It's a psychological mystery, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say that's like... It's more of a mystery, because he's having, like... He, like, hears the song and is, like, hearing things inside the song that people can't hear. Like, Mew saying help.
Right, he starts hearing, like, distortions.
And he keeps, like, talking about psychological, like, theories and stuff.
Well, that was what was great about the early part of the episode, is that the main character is just, like, into psychology, but he's understanding of it is on a high school level, and the show is, like, understanding of that. Like, it doesn't seem like it was pretending to be deep. I didn't get the impression that the show was trying to say, like, ooh, like, we're quoting Carl Jung, doesn't that make us intelligent? It's just like, no, this kid is, like, a nerdy guy who's obsessed with psychology, and he keeps bringing it up around his friends, but, like, he can't really explain himself well, and they're all kind of like, who gives a shit about this nerdy crap, you know? And I really appreciated the writing of the conversations about his psychological things, you know, that it's just like him talking to his friends and like trying to make points and them being like, shut up, nerd.
Whatever,
we
don't care. We want the ramen anyways.
Right, and then he starts feeling these like distortions in the world, and the way it's portrayed is really cool and trippy. Like the visual and audio effects that are used, the way that like things like you see events repeating, and it's like it's confusing, but you can tell that that's the point, and it's creepy at times. It's got like a thick tone, and yeah, like you said, the visuals are not that amazing. Like this is not as good as Lane or the original Boogie Pop at being like a trippy psychological thing, but it's very much in that vein. And I thought for sure this was based on like a Faust-style light novel when we first started watching it. Turns out it's based on a game from the guy who wrote the first 3 Persona games, not including Persona 3. We're talking Persona 1 and the 2 Persona 2 games, which makes perfect sense because the Persona games feel like those light novels and were influential towards those light novels. So it's really interesting that that guy's involved, and the way that the story is told is kind of similar to Persona 4, actually. I mean, I've only seen the anime of Persona 4, and I didn't even finish it, but like that show had like episodic storylines where it's like each character's personal hang-up they have to like battle, overcome. You know?
That's kind of like where we've gotten in the anime.
But unfortunately, it's like the first episode is such a great tonal setup, a great introduction to the main character. It's slow, it's creepy, but then at the very end, when like all of the dudes morph into monsters, that was when I was like, oh, there's like monster battles. So this is not going to be like a Boogie Pop. This is not going to be a Faust light novel. There's going to be monster battles. And then, so in between episodes, I of course did my research, found out about it being a game adaptation and what kind of game it is. It's like, you know, it's a Persona-esque, they called it a juvenile RPG.
That's a perfect description.
Yeah, it takes place in high school. You fight, you know, you like live a high school life and fight monsters kind of thing. It was originally a Vita game. They've ported it to the PS4. It's coming stateside in March. But like, the game did not look that interesting. And like, knowing that it's based on a game, it made me feel like, well, shit, that means the plot is not going to be able to like be interesting.
No, it has nowhere to go.
Because the problem with a RPG adaptation is that, like, in order to have the central gameplay loop of a game like that, you can't really create any, like, dramatic changes to the world and characters that would, like, disrupt the central mechanics of the game. Like, if you have a party of 4, unless, I mean, I guess Final Fantasy games have done a good job of, like, you know, killing off one of your characters and just giving you a different one, or, like, switching up the party, because they're more cinematic experiences overall.
Yeah,
but, like,
this is not that.
No.
This is not that.
Right, so, like, you know that it's going to be, like...
It's juvenile for a reason.
You know that in order for them to stay within the same school and to stay within the same systems of the game, that there's not going to be, like, a great amount of story progress. It's going to be, like, fighting bosses one after another.
Trailers for the game, it's like 500 students is like, damn.
Oh, is that, like, one of the things it said?
Yeah, like, it was advertising that it had 500 students. Like...
What does that mean?
I don't know.
So episode 2 starts, like, explaining the plot and getting more into the nitty-gritty. And at first, I was like, I'm kind of losing interest. And then, like, it I guess that's mostly what episode 2 was. It's just, like, explaining plot stuff.
And introducing, like, some of the other characters.
Right. And it was, like, it wasn't nearly as interesting as the first episode, but it still had that, like, strong sound design, strong directing, and I still was, like, curious enough to continue.
Where is this going? Like,
right.
What is going on?
So we start up episode 3, and at first it's more plot-focused and it's not as interesting, but then episode 3 suddenly gets really interesting, because the whole, like, second half of the episode is in this weird, like tea party where there's all these fat girls and like one of the, you know, like, bosses, the bad guys, and one of the main characters is, like, trying to find out information about her mother who changed in this transition to this world. That's another thing that was interesting about the first episode, is that there was, like, one of the characters' mom has, like, a clear eating disorder, and it's, like, really, like, that's kind of a rough thing.
Yeah, that's, like, it's something that high schoolers, like, probably do deal with, and isn't really explored a lot in media, but is, like, very interesting.
It's interesting, like, that it's her mom who has the problem, because it's like,
so, okay,
what do you even do about that?
I googled about that character because I was curious, because there was, like, you were, like, you know, predicting that she was fat or something.
In real life.
I looked it up, and she, like, was in the hospital for anorexia.
Okay, so that's what it was.
So, yeah, it's the opposite. But, like...
Yeah, because, like, it's sort of suggested in this episode. It's a really interesting scene, because basically the Tea Party girls are all being as obnoxious as possible. Like, they're just trying to, like, fuck with this girl and drive her up the wall until she finally cracks and just, like, goes on this tirade about how they're all fat asses and how they're all disgusting, and, like, she can't believe that they would be so annoying and ugly, right? And they're like, caught ya, you're actually a bitch, aren't you? And they're like, you know, I bet you've had to deal with, like, because in this world, in this virtual world, you can basically be whoever you want to be, and you can, like, make anything happen within the space of this world.
Yeah, me will grant your wishes.
Right, so it sort of suggested that this girl has been here for longer than we thought, and that she has some kind of weight issues in real life, probably brought about by her mother also having, like, anorexia. And so, like, the system had recreated her mother to make her healthy and normal. But, like, this also means she's in no way resembles her real mom. So she's, like, trying to get her mother back, and they're, like, basically telling her, like, no, you're the one who said you wanted your mom to be different, and, like, you wished her away, so fuck you. And they sort of suggest that there's probably something wrong with her in real life that she's trying to escape. But then it's revealed that the girl who set up this tea party, who's, like, all about being cutesy and girly, in real life is, like...
He's a fat man.
Yeah,
he blogs about ramen.
He's a fat ramen blogger who's, you know, made fun of in real life, so he's become somebody else in this world. And just the way the scene occurs is... It's so, like, mind-numbing in the way that the characters are acting. I really loved the scene, and it gets visually crazy, because, like, the fat girls keep eating more and more, and, like, at first it's just, like, haha, they're eating a lot of sweets, but then it gets to the point where, like, cakes are just, like, slopping on the table, and, like, they're going full Spirited Away, like, parents, you know, like, turning into giant pig monsters.
It's crazy, and it's, like, it's really fucking...
It was visually interesting.
It's chaotic and cool, and the colors were neat.
And, like, I thought it was really cool that they were, like, suggesting things about the character IRL, but not saying it outright. And so, I was kind of, like, I was concerned after episode 2 that the show would not have anything interesting to say. But in that episode, while it didn't necessarily have anything interesting or deep to say, because, I mean, the show it's a juvenile RPG. It's dealing with very, like, basic issues, but like, I appreciate when shows go out of their way to, like, quote real-world books and psychologists and stuff, because that's how people really talk. And, like, people are always afraid of being pretentious by doing that, by being like, oh, you cited fucking young, so deep. And it's like, well, the point isn't to be deep. It's that, like, why make up your own bullshit when other people have already explained this stuff, you know?
Yeah, and it kind of makes it feel more believable when you're applying something that you might be familiar with in the real world to this scenario.
Exactly.
Like, that's kind of cool. Unless it's Schrodinger's cat.
Yeah, unless it's that. But, like, you know, I was enjoying that aspect of it. But, like, if even if the show didn't have anything interesting to say, it had interesting things to show. It had cool imagery and, like, weird, trippy scenes. And I was like, even if the plot doesn't go anywhere, and even if it's just, like, one character at a time, like, exploring their personality disorders or whatever, I'm down for that as long as it's trippy like this. Episode 4 was not trippy like that. Episode 4 was significantly more watered down,
and, like,
more
the
plot
character
focused.
was really boring.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, she has social anxiety.
Yeah.
It was not explored in any particular way. It seems like every character in this setting has social anxiety, so what makes this different? The bad guy who they fight, like, he's turned himself into a doll, and he's, like, turned a bunch of other people into dolls to inhabit this library with him, because he's got a real bad hedgehog's dilemma, and he doesn't want anybody to get close to him because he's scared of getting hurt. But he still wants people around because he doesn't want to be alone. And that's it. The dolls were not visually interesting.
A lot.
Yeah, he talks about Smeagol from the Lord of the Rings a whole lot, and how he relates to Smeagol. But overall, episode 4 was just, like, kind of lame and wasn't nearly as interesting. Then we started up episode 5, and it's really ugly.
It looks like ass.
It looks so bad. First of all, as we complained about with last period, they're doing that shit with the floor textures where it's clearly just, like, been transform tooled, and it looks
start doing
terrible.
That in all the low budget anime.
It's happening. I mean, they were doing it even before in this show. Like, the backgrounds in this show are, like, in terms of visual quality, they're just as bad as anything else, but, like, they have better art design. Like, at least, like, the main character lives in a pretty cool-looking apartment complex that's got, like, a unique design. The library looked cool with, like, all the ivy going up it.
The club room they were in, like, looked nice.
Yeah.
It's like they actually thought about where they would be and what's going on and who would be doing things in there, but, like, they did not deliver on making them look good.
I mean, I'm able to forgive, like, technically bad work when it has stronger art design, when it has, like, just some level of creative spark.
Yeah, it's like the budget wasn't there, but we can tell that there was there's something interesting about what we're looking at.
But I can't abide by the fucking aliasing on the floor tiles in these shows. Like, when I look and I see a clean character over a pixelated ass fucking floor, I'm just like, is there no smoothing tool you could have used after you did the transform? Like, come on. This should not be excusable. You should not be able to televise jagged ass fucking lines on the ground. That is unfinished.
This whole episode made my eyes hurt, because, like, it would just, like, the way it would pan, it just, like, looked like shit, and we are paused right now on this doofus's face.
Yeah, that I took the clip.
Yeah.
I think that, I don't know if this is a show that has, like, different episode directors, or if it's just, like, certain episodes got more attention than others, or what the production background was like.
Probably rushed a couple of them out.
It definitely is, like, a disparity. Like, this episode, even the directing just feels like nothing. Like, this episode we're 7.5 minutes in, and it's like a wet fart. It's like nothing has happened. There's been no grab, no hook, no visual intrigue, no plot intrigue, and we were just kind of like, alright, I've seen enough. I'm good. That's enough Caligula.
Yeah.
Really disappointing, because, I mean, I guess I'm not, like, super let down because I only found out that this show had any merit to it. If anything, I guess I'm glad that I got to see the good first episode. And I wouldn't be surprised if there was some cool stuff that happens later into this show. It's just not worth the averages,
like,
you know? I mean,
it has not been good.
At the absolute best, even if this show, like, picked up and stayed good for the rest, it would not be above a 7. So, like, it's not worth the effort.
Not worth sitting through this.
No.
Because it's literally hard to look at.
Anyway, that's it for this episode of Finish or Fail. See you in the next one.